Hey everybody, welcome to Popcorn Perspective. I'm Josh O'Leary, and this is where I watch a movie and then react to it for the first time and tell you what happened and give you my rating on it. And today we're going to look at the 1986 horror movie Crawlspace. So our movie starts off, Crawlspace starts off with a woman looking around in an apartment building for Mr. Gunther. Mr. Gunther is the owner of this apartment building. She's looking around for him. She's like, Mr. Gunther, where are you, Mr. Gunther? And she sees this person in a cage. This person is in a cage all locked up, and they're like, they're like, no. And then a booby trap is set off and right through the chest. This is a booby trap that Mr. Gunther has put together. This guy is the big booby trap guy. He's real big into practical jokes, Mr. Gunther. Mr. Gunther then goes and he sits in a room by himself and he plays a nice kinky version of a Russian roulette. Cuts his finger open, he pours his blood all over this bullet, puts it in the gun. He twists the gun around, he puts it to his head, and he's like, it doesn't go off. And he's like, so be it. So be it. That's like his favorite phrase in this movie. So be it. Okay, so now we're gonna go to where there's a man like standing outside of this woman's window, and this woman is getting dressed, and it's supposed to make you think that she doesn't know this man's looking in. All the meanwhile, Mr. Gunther is looking in through the vents above. I know this movie's called Crawlspace, but he's in the vents above the whole time. He's always like crawling around. I mean, he is crawling in a space, but he's in the vents. So this woman's getting all ready. I don't think anybody's watching me. And the next thing you know, the guy looking in the window, not Mr. Gunther, who's in the vents, the guy looking in the window, he appears, and it seems like he's gonna get her and all this stuff. Hold on, wait. Let me backtrack. I forgot. Right before this guy appears, she's like in the mirror looking at herself, and she like cuts the nipples out of her bra, so just her nipples are poking out. I was like, what is the point of this? So ridiculous. That made me laugh. From the window, he comes in, and it looks like he's gonna attack her and all this stuff, and then it turns out he's her boyfriend, and they're just playing some sort of kinky role play here. All the while, Mr. Gunther, he's in the vents. He's in the vents watching from afar. So then we cut to a man coming into the apartment. He's looking for a vacant apartment. It says there's a vacancy. He goes and asks Mr. Gunther, and Mr. Gunther immediately turns him away, says, we've already rented this apartment. Coming in right behind this man is a nice, beautiful young woman who wants to rent an apartment, and Mr. Gunther tells her the exact opposite. He's like, hey, this apartment, it's open. At least that's what I think Mr. Gunther is saying. This whole movie, Mr. Gunther is so soft-spoken. He is so soft-spoken. It's almost hard to hear him pretty much the whole movie. He's like, wow, the apartment would be perfect for you. It's a very good apartment. This woman that's moving into the new apartment, her name is Lori. Lori and Mr. Gunther go to check out Lori's new apartment. She's like, I may want this apartment. Let me go check it out. And her and Mr. Gunther go in there, and Lori's distracted looking at some of the amenities in the kitchen. Mr. Gunther turns on the stove, and he like puts his hand over the stove and lets it burn his hand. And he says, will you take it? Will you? He asks her if she'll take the apartment. And until she answers, he leaves his hand over the stove, and she says, yeah, I'll take it. And then he removes it. And then I think he says, so be it. He probably did. So then we cut to Mr. Gunther, and he goes to his apartment sometimes, and he also goes to the attic. And he goes up to the attic, and he writes in his journal about how he's addicted to killing. That's all he knows is killing. It's just a passed down trait of his. And all the while, there's this girl locked in a cage. She's a mute, from where Mr. Gunther has cut off her tongue and put it into a jar. He writes in his journal, and he talks to this mute in her cage that he has locked up in her cage. she even passes him a note, I think in this scene, where she's like, kill me, please. And he's like, I can't kill you. Because then I have no one to talk to. Then I don't have anyone to talk to. So then we go back to nippleless bra woman. The woman who cut the nipples out of her bra. She's singing a song on the piano. She's getting all hot and heavy, ready for her boy toy to come in through the window again. And unfortunately, Mr. Gunther is out there watching through the window before the boy toy gets there. And the boy toy shows up and he gets killed off screen. And you see Mr. Gunther putting his eyeballs into a jar. So now he's got a tongue in a jar and he's got some eyeballs in a jar. So then a man comes to visit Mr. Gunther who looks like some sort of investigator. And Mr. Gunther's in his apartment reading a book and enjoying a nice big bowl of fun size Snickers and Three Musketeers. This man knows how to live. He lets this guy in, and this guy accuses Gunther of being a physician, the head physician at some ward. And Gunther's like, okay. And he's like, yeah, man, you killed 67 people who went in for routine checkups, dude. Like, you're a murderer, and you killed my brother. This investigator then drops the biggest bombshell of the movie. I couldn't tell by how soft-spoken Gunther was, but Gunther is the son of a Nazi leader. The investigator just drops on us right here. Hey, he's like, hey, your dad was a Nazi leader, and he was the main guy who came up with all the torture devices. Gunther's had enough of this guy's talk, and Gunther asks him to leave. This guy's like, listen, I'm going to prove it. If it's one thing or another, I'm going to prove that you're a murderer. So then we got to go around tapping in the vents again. Okay, so Gunther is obsessed with this tapping thing. He takes like a little metal ball in his hand and he taps it with a knife, and it makes this tapping noise. And he does this in the vents, and everybody in the apartment complex thinks it's the rats. They just think it's the rats that are in the apartment. Oh, we've got rats. And Gunther's going around doing his tapping, tap, tap, into the vents. And there's this woman in the apartment complex who's getting ready to have some sexy time with her man, who's a very rich older man. He makes that very clear, and she makes that very clear, that he is rich and old. They make that very clear, that he is rich and old. And they go to make sexy time, but he can't do it. He can't do it with the tapping going on in the vents. He's like, I won't do it with this noise going on. Call an exterminator. So he leaves, only to get lured up to Mr. Gunther's apartment there. And Mr. Gunther cuts his finger off, kills him, I guess, off screen, cuts his finger off, and puts that in a jar. So now he's got eyeballs in a jar, a tongue in a jar, and a finger in a jar. This is actually where the jars stop. I don't believe the jars come back into play here. He kept those 3 items from those victims. We then go back to Gunther writing in his journal some more, and his cage victim is over there in agony the entire time. Mr. Gunther then does some more crawling around in his crawl space, the vents. He does some more crawling around in there, and he scares, we have a nice scene where he scares Lori in her bathroom, and he pushes a rat through the vent. It's a really nice jump scare scene. So now the investigator's back. The investigator's back to get some more information on Mr. Gunther, and he goes to give Lori a visit, the newest tenant. He goes to visit Lori while he's trying to get some information. Mr. Gunther, he's crawling around in the vents. You know he's up there. You know he's crawling around up there. And he's got a poison dart that he's going to shoot at the investigator. But then he decides, no. This needs to be a lot more painful. So as the investigator's leaving Lori's apartment, he gets lured up to the apartment of Mr. Gunther by the tap, tap, tap sounds. Those tap, tap, tap sounds get everybody. Everybody's like, what is that? And they just kind of go towards the noise. The investigator gets led up there, and he sits down in this booby-trap chair that they had just previously shown, this nice little booby-trap chair that has a spike that goes right up through the middle of it. He sits down in that chair, and, well, as he starts to read the journal laid out by Mr. Gunther appears from behind the curtains. I just looked to my own curtains to see if Mr. Gunther was there. Mr. Gunther appears from behind the curtains. It startles this guy. He sets off the booby trap. Boom, spike right through the asshole. This dude, horrible death. Horrible death. This giant spike through the asshole. Ooh. Okay, and then now the movie's gonna start to go off the rails. Gunther is then shown up in the attic, looking into a mirror, smearing makeup all over his face. He's putting on lipstick. He's getting sexy so he can go and play Hitler speeches on a projector in the attic and dress up like Hitler with makeup on. I don't. This is where I was like, okay, here we go. And Gunther keeps playing Russian roulette this entire time. In between all this stuff, he's playing Russian roulette. That bullet's not killing him. So then Laurie comes home. We then cut to Laurie coming home, going into her apartment and finding rats in her freezer. There's a bunch of rats in her freezer. And then a phone call comes in. She answers the phone, and it's Gunther on the other line. I swear, this made me laugh when I heard it. He's like, who is in your bathtub? Someone's in your bathtub. This guitar, dude, this guy's like Tommy Wiseau. This big Tommy Wiseau vibes from the actor that played Gunther here. So Laurie goes and looks in her bathtub, and the investigator's body is in there with a swastika carved into his forehead. Laurie screams, "Oh no, I'm gonna run to my neighbor's apartment, the one friend I have here. The girl from before, the sexy time girl, nipple cutter girl. The only problem is she's bolted to her piano with some weird vice grip torture devices. She's been bolted, she's dead." Laurie then runs upstairs, screaming all the while. I guess Mr. Gunther is just taking his sweet, slow Michael Myers-like time getting to her. So she runs upstairs to the attic and sees the girl in the cage. The girl in the cage is like, pointing to the key. The key is just hanging on like a, it's really funny. The key's just hanging on like a nail, like from above, like, please grab that key and give it to me. So she gives the girl in the cage, the mute girl with no tongue in the cage, a nice key, a nice set-free key. Gunther then comes through the door and Laurie escapes down into the vents. Gunther's onto her, so he releases a bunch of rats into the vents, which does nothing, really. It does nothing. Laurie is just shooing these rats away like they're nothing. All right, so this is where it gets bonkers. Gunther goes and chases Laurie through the vents for quite a long time. They're chasing through the vents for quite a long time. At one point, Gunther's got like a little wheel thing he can hop on. He's like riding through there like it's Discovery Zone, through this crawl space, these vents, and he catches up to Laurie, almost getting her, but she crawls out through the top, and he chases right behind her, but he's distracted. He's distracted by some propaganda, the Hitler propaganda that was playing from before. It's playing again off the projector, and it distracts him, and it seems to set off a booby trap. So, and also the girl in the cage is still in here. Like, she could have ran away by now, but she's still in here, and she meets up with Laurie, and they think they hear a booby trap go off, and it shows Mr. Gunther with the spike from the beginning of the movie that killed the first woman. It shows that spike right in the center of his chest. You think he's dead. I was like, oh shit, that's the end of the movie, what the hell? But no, it's not the end of the movie. It reveals that he just lets them escape again. That was all a prank. Haha, I'm actually alive. I taped this blade to my chest. I'm actually alive. So he then follows them up to, or down to his apartment from the attic, follows him down to his apartment, and he opens the door. The mute girl's like, oh no, oh no. And Laurie's on the phone trying to call the cops. The only thing is, Gunther has left his Russian roulette gun sitting right there. And Laurie picks it up, and as he's walking towards him, she just keeps trying to fire this trigger. And I guess eventually, boom, it shoots him dead. And that was the end of Crawlspace. That was the end of the movie. Gunther, well, I guess it's not Russian roulette. He didn't lose. He never lost Russian roulette. Undefeated in Russian roulette, Gunther. All right, what did I think of this movie? This movie was okay. This was an okay movie. I think the highlights were honestly the lead actor, his weird delivery of his lines. He's so quiet. His Tommy Wiseau like speech and like mannerisms, and honestly, just quite a lot of things like Tommy Wiseau about this guy. The more I think about it, I liked him overall, and the lead girl honestly was pretty good, doing with what she could do here in this movie. But overall, I don't know. What from this movie should I pick out? Jars. This guy, he liked jars. So, you know, he had 3 jars. 3 jars of, he had an eyeball jar, a finger jar, and a tongue jar. You know, those were his jars. And if he had 10 jars to fill, he only filled 3. And that's my score for this movie. I'm gonna give this movie a 3 out of 10. And you know, it's Crawlspace. I mean, it is what it is. Will I go back and revisit this? Probably not. I mean, I kind of like the concept of him kind of being a creepy little guy. His booby traps and the rats and all that stuff. I feel like you could have tied that all in had a lot more fun with that. A lot of the deaths were off screen. You didn't get and that was a little bit of a letdown. But other than that, this movie, yeah. I mean, I had some fun. I had a fun time watching it. You know, 3 doesn't mean I didn't have a fun time watching. So for this pilot series, I have been doing scary movies, spooky movies for the month of October. And if all goes well, I continue to review films, but we're going to continue to do scary movies until the month of October is up here on Slipper House Extra Extra YouTube channel. Thank you to them for putting this on the air. We'll see you next week with another popcorn perspective when I take a look at... All right, we'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
This is where